Power surged through my veins like a supernova compressed into blood. The key had embedded itself in my chest, not as a wound but a rebirth. I didn't just feel stronger, I felt unbound. The walls of time no longer looked like glass or lines, but choices. Every breath I took rippled into countless futures, rewriting themselves around the echo of my will. Eltar took a cautious step back. You shouldn't be able to hold it, he murmured. Not alone. I'm not alone, I said, locking eyes with Vylanara. She's with me. He bared his teeth. Then you've already lost. He raised his hands and tore the chamber open. A rift bloomed above us, wide as a planet's orbit. Through it spilled the impossible, time-fractured soldiers. Hybrid creatures built from broken timelines, starships caught in loops of birth and destruction. The Architect's army, they surged forward like a wave, hungry to collapse this singularity. We'd created to erase my choice before it spread like a virus through their perfect control. Vylanara moved beside me. What now? I asked. You command probability now, she said. You don't fight time, you weave it. The knowledge downloaded into me like a million lives pressing against my skin. I didn't need tactics, I remembered victories I hadn't yet earned. I spoke a word I didn't know I knew, and from my hands unraveled shields not of light, but of negated history. Every enemy that crossed the threshold vanished and made by the very absence of the future. They once caused, still they came. Eltar split into 3 versions of himself, each wielding a different outcome. One where he ruled Earth, one where he was the key, and one where he died saving me. They attacked in unison, but I was ready. I met each with their counterself, my echoes. Summoned from timelines I now bridged like walkways. For every strike, a version of me replied. For every threat, a version of her answered beside me. Reality began to buckle, the chamber cracked, not in walls but in meaning. Above us, the architect rift groaned. I saw its core, a machine, a throne. A place where the creators sat, not alive, not gods, but designers of causality, watching. Waiting. I looked at Vale. We can end this. Her eyes shimmered. Then do it. I raised my hands toward the rift. The key inside me burned. Words echoed in my mind, not in sound, but intent, to collapse a design. The architect must be denied control. I understood, and I made my choice. I didn't destroy them. I did something far worse. I gave everyone their own key. Every being across the fabric of time, from the oldest Kaelari to the youngest Martian miner, was unbound. The control grid shattered, the timeline fractured, not into chaos, but into liberty. The architect screamed a mechanical, emotionless burst of code, and we're gone. Their army stopped moving. Eltar fell to his knees. You made everyone a threat to everything, he said. No, I replied. I made them free. He faded, then not as a death, but a return, a ripple of light, a paradox no longer supported by the control structure. And just like that, he was gone. The silence afterward was the loudest moment of my life. Vylanara stood beside me, the key's light now soft inside both our chests. We had done it. We had rewritten reality, so I said, finally exhaling. What happens now? She looked at me with a tenderness that held galaxies. We don't know, she said. And that's finally a beautiful thing. Epilogue. Walk the stars now. Not as a god, not as a hero. As a weaver. In some timelines, I'm a ghost. In others, a father, a rebel. A keeper of a sacred crystal beneath the dunes. But in one timeline, the one I chose, I live. With her, we built a world not in a dome or a code, but in choice. Where every species, every soul, no longer had their destiny written by shadows. And when the wind howls across the Martian dunes, children still tell the story of a boy who saved a girl in a cage, and how she turned out to be the key to saving everything. The chamber behind her pulsed with light, pale blue one moment, deep crimson the next. Like a heartbeat with arrhythmia, I stepped toward it, but she raised a hand. Not yet. I stopped. Her tone wasn't commanding, but layered, like she was speaking over a second voice, one louder and buried deeper. I studied her more closely now. The alien girl I'd found as a teenager, silent, submerged, locked in stasis, was gone. In her place stood someone ancient in presence, though not in age. Her name formed in my mind again, not by sound but through impression. Kaelari, that was her name. Or the closest my brain could translate it. You've aged well, human, she said. Her voice more resonant than I remembered, stronger now. Calmer, that matters. What is this place? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. What's behind that door? She turned and gazed into the echoing depths of the chamber. A vault, a fracture in space where memories become weaponized. I was imprisoned here. Not for protection, but containment. The ones who made this vault feared what I carry. And what might awaken with me. Who locked you up? Kaelari smiled without warmth. My own people. She led me deeper into the vault. As we passed the threshold, I felt the temperature shift, not just cold, hollow, like the vacuum between stars. The walls shimmered with flickers of ancient events. Battles, cities collapsing in spirals of light. Fleets reduced to silence by weapons too complex to understand. Kaelari walked ahead, untouched by the projections. I, however, could feel every image press against my mind. Each vision etched a burning memory that didn't belong to me, like someone else's life layered over my own. This is the vault's curse, Kaelari said. It remembers everything, and if you stay too long, you forget what is yours. I gritted my teeth, pushing forward. The room ahead expanded into an amphitheater of light, carved from black stone that hummed with power. At its center stood a spire, thin, silver, and humming like a cello string. Orbiting it were fragments of machines, alien and human, some I recognized from old wars. Others looked like they were forged by stars. Your species found this place 10 years ago, Kaelari continued. Your Tyranid leaders cracked the vault. They siphoned fragments of its tech, not understanding it, just hungry. I shook my head. Tyranid would never admit that. They said they were exploring quantum pathways, nothing about alien vaults. Kaelari's lips curled. Lies, but clever ones. A projection snapped into clarity behind us. My blood ran cold. It was me. 16 years old. Standing at the edge of the capsule, my hand against the glass, her face barely visible inside the blue liquid. The moment from my past perfectly rendered. You remembered, I whispered. Kaelari turned. The vault did, and so did I. Then the projection changed, distorted. My image was still there, but something else entered the frame. A man in black armor, no face. Just a helm etched with the same spiral I'd seen on the first transmission. That, she whispered. Is Korrav another one of your people? No, he used to be. Now he's something else. Kaelari led me to the spire. This is why I called you back, she said. The vault is breaking. Korrav is returning to finish what he started. And what did he start? Genocide. The word echoed like a weapon. He stole the vault's core memory, an artifact capable of rewriting living consciousness. It was never meant for war, but he turned it into something else. He used it to remake soldiers, slave minds and bodies that obeyed. When I opposed him, they locked me here. I stared at the spire, realization dawning, and now that I've opened it, he knows. Kaelari nodded. He's on his way. Suddenly, a low vibration throbbed through the vault. Dust fell, the walls flickered, distorted, and the air grew tight. He's close, Kaelari said, and we're not ready. What do we do? She pulled something from her armor, a shard of crystal veined with living circuitry. She handed it to me. It sank into my palm like it belonged there. That's a key to your inheritance. I blinked. My what? 12 years ago. When you touched the capsule, the vault marked you, gave you the imprint of a binder. A what now? Someone who can bridge memories, bind them between minds, fuse thoughts. It's a rare trait only found once in 1,000 lifetimes. Korrav is hunting binders to destroy them, but you're more than a target now. You're the last one. The lights in the chamber darkened. A booming noise echoed down the corridor. We ran. Kaelari moved like shadow and wind. I stumbled behind her, the crystal throbbing in my hand. The exit loomed ahead, but so did something else, a shape. It stepped into the passage, towering, armored in obsidian plates that shimmered with internal fire. No face, just the spiral symbol, glowing red-hot on its chest. Korrav, too late, Kaelari hissed. He raised one arm and the vault around us screamed. Kaelari turned, eyes blazing. Get to the surface, find the Ark Beacon. You'll know it when you see it. What about you? I'll hold him. No, she shoved me back hard. A pulse of energy knocked me into the lift. The door slammed shut. Through the window, I saw Kaelari charge forward, and Korrav, he just smiled. As the lift rocketed upward, I clutched the crystal to my chest. My mind reeled. I was marked, bound to something ancient, hunted by a ghost in armor, and the girl I'd returned for. She had just walked into war for me. The surface wasn't much better than the vault. The desert stretched out like a wasteland. But there was something sharper in the air now, like the wind had teeth. My hands gripped the crystal tight, as though its pulse was the only thing keeping me anchored. I stumbled through the barren landscape, the harsh sunlight pounding my skin. My mind racing. I couldn't let Kaelari's sacrifice be in vain. I had to finish what she started, but where the hell was the Ark Beacon? The lift had dropped me off far from the vault, close to the remains of an old military outpost. Rusted vehicles, collapsed barracks, and broken satellite dishes littered the landscape. It wasn't the first time I'd seen such a place, in fact. It felt too familiar, like a place I'd been before. But that wasn't possible. I had never been here. My head throbbed, a dull ache starting from the back of my skull. The crystal in my hand grew warmer, almost alive. I shook my head, trying to push past the strange feeling. Focus. There was no time for this. I needed to find the Ark Beacon before Korrav did. Hours passed. The wind picked up, and the ground beneath my boots started to shift, the sand giving way to dark, cracked earth. The sun began to set, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch farther than they should have. As the temperature plummeted, I pulled my jacket tighter around me and quickened my pace. Then I saw it. A flash of light in the distance. It wasn't the kind of light you see from a star or a reflection, it was something different. A pulsing, steady glow. It flickered like a heartbeat. I didn't hesitate. My legs moved on their own, carrying me toward it, the crystal in my hand pulling me forward like it had its own purpose. The beacon dot as I approached, the light became more intense, and I found myself at the edge of a large, open pit. It wasn't natural, it had been carved. Shapes of structure rose from the center, ancient, massive, and buried beneath the sands. The glow came from a series of lines etched into the stone, glowing veins of energy that pulsed in time with my own heartbeat. I wasn't alone. A figure stood at the center of the structure. Dark, cloaked, and radiating an aura of power, his presence sent a chill up my spine. Even from this distance, Korrav, I froze, trying to keep my breath steady. So, you found it? Korrav's voice rang out, smooth and cold. I stepped back, instinctively trying to hide, but the ground beneath my feet shifted again. He had already seen me. Don't bother running, he said with a laugh. There's nowhere to hide from what's coming. I tried to ignore the sinking feeling in my stomach. The Ark Beacon, the glowing lines, all of it was part of something much bigger than I realized. But why had Kaelari sent me here? What was I supposed to do with this? This thing, I've been waiting for this, Korrav continued, his voice rising in pitch. Gaining power, it's almost over. The final piece will fall into place, and you'll be just another fragment of history forgotten. His eyes flicked toward me, cold, unfeeling, but before I could react, a burst of light exploded from the beacon. It wasn't a shockwave, it was a signal that reached into the air, into the sky, and into space. And in that instant, I realized something. The Ark Beacon was calling something. And that something was not Korrav. I didn't know what to do. I didn't even have time to think. The ground rumbled, the sky darkened. The sun now swallowed by thick clouds that moved far too quickly. A low hum vibrated through the air. I looked up, but nothing could have prepared me for what I saw. A massive ship, shaped like a twisted pyramid, appeared in the sky. It was too vast, too silent, no sound. No engines, just a presence, a looming presence. Korrav didn't react at first. His eyes flicked from me to the ship, and for the first time, I saw fear in his expression. No, he hissed, his voice full of venom. This wasn't part of the plan. I didn't know what this ship was, but I had the strangest feeling that it had been waiting for me, waiting for the signal, and now it had arrived. The Ark Beacon had done its job. It had brought the ship, it had brought them, and Korrav was in their way. I didn't waste another second. I ran toward the beacon, toward the structure, toward the only thing that could possibly give me a chance at survival. But before I reached it, I felt it, something cold, sharp, like a blade of ice cutting through the air around me. Korrav was following me. I reached the structure's base, the walls towering high above me. The glowing veins of energy seemed to beckon me closer, like they were waiting for me to make the next move. As I stepped forward, the air around me crackled. The ground beneath me shifted, and I realized this wasn't just a building. It was alive. It was a construct, ancient and sentient, built to protect the beacon, built to shield it from whatever Korrav had unleashed, and now it was responding to me. A hum echoed in the air, and the walls began to glow brighter, pulsating with energy. The symbols on the stone twisted and reformed, shifting into patterns I didn't understand. A deep, resonant voice spoke within my mind. The path has been set. The tethered must choose. The words hit me like a wave. The tethered? What the hell was that? What choice did I have? I didn't know, but in that moment, the choice felt like it was being forced upon me. Korrav's voice rang out again, cutting through the tension. He was getting closer, his footsteps echoing against the ground. You can't stop me, he shouted. You never could. I didn't have time to process his words. I was already moving. I stepped forward, placing my hand on the glowing symbols of the beacon. They reacted instantly, surrounding my hand with pulses of light. The hum grew louder, the energy filling my chest with warmth, with purpose. Then, everything went black. When the darkness lifted, I was no longer on the surface. I didn't even realize I had moved until I opened my eyes. The light around me wasn't harsh. Like the desert sun, it was soft, like twilight. A faint blue hue washed over everything, giving the air a calm, almost ethereal quality. I was standing in a vast space, but it wasn't a room, it wasn't a building. It was something else entirely. It was a memory. I could feel it, the air. The ground beneath my boots, it wasn't real, not in the way I knew reality to be. The lines of the environment blurred, flickered, like a hologram adjusting to focus. I reached out, my fingers grazing a nearby structure. It felt solid, real, but I knew better. It was all artificial, a simulation, a projection. I wasn't alone. The figure that approached me wasn't Kaelari. It wasn't Korrav either. It was me. The version of me that stood before me wasn't the 16-year-old boy who had stumbled upon Kaelari's capsule. Nor was it the man who had just run through a war-torn desert. This was someone else, someone older, someone who carried the weight of countless decisions. My eyes looked back at me with sorrow, understanding, and something darker. "You found it," the older version of me said. His voice low and filled with an unsettling familiarity. "You chose to follow the path, even though you knew it would never lead to what you expected." I took a step back, trying to process what I was seeing. Who was he? Was this a part of the beacon's memory? Was this the past, the future, or something else entirely? "I am what you will become," he said, as though reading my thoughts. "The tethered, the one who carries the memories of this place, of Kaelari's people, of everything that happened. Everything that's about to happen." I felt my throat tighten, but I didn't choose this. "I didn't. You didn't have a choice," the older me interrupted. "The tethered are bound to the Ark. We don't choose, we're selected." I wanted to speak, to ask him more, but the words tangled in my mind. The air around me began to shimmer, and the structure, the environment shifted. I saw flashes, Kaelari fighting against Korrav, the ship in the sky, massive and looming. Korrav's face twisted in rage. The flashes began to move faster, turning into a blur, a sequence of memories, not just mine, but Kaelari's and his, the older me. "These are the memories of the ones before us," he said, as though he could see the visions too. "The ones who failed, the ones who sacrificed everything for nothing." The memory of Kaelari's final stand flashed across my vision again. I could almost hear the sound of her voice, but it wasn't the voice I remembered. It was weaker, strained. "You will never escape this," she whispered, her words cutting through the dissonance. "It's in the Ark's code, in the beacon. The tethered are trapped by it. You're trapped by it." I gasped, the weight of her words sinking. Entrapped? I was trapped in this endless loop of memories, choices made by people who had come before me. Kaelari, the older me, all of us, bound to this thing, this Ark, this beacon. There is no escape. The older version of me repeated, "You are part of something much bigger than you can understand, and you always will be." I took another step back, my heart racing. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It wasn't just about stopping Korrav, the Ark. The beacon, it wasn't a weapon. It was a prison for all of us who had been marked. A prison for those who carried the memories of a dying race, of lost worlds, of forgotten promises. "You have a choice," the older me said, his tone now tinged with something like pity. "You can accept it. You can carry the weight, the burden, and become the one who keeps the memories alive, or you can reject it, but it will destroy you. The beacon will tear you apart, and you will cease to exist. The choice is yours." I stood there, frozen, the weight of the decision pressing down on me. What could I possibly choose? The memories? The duty? Or the freedom with all the pain and destruction that would follow? "You already know what you will choose," the older me said, his voice now filled with resignation. "You've always known." I closed my eyes, and for a moment, the world around me seemed to collapse. The memories, the voices, the flashing images, they all blurred together, swirling into a single overwhelming feeling. Fear, regret, but also hope. I didn't know what was waiting for me on the other side, but I knew this much: I wasn't ready to die, not yet. I hadn't finished what I started, not with Kaelari, not with Korrav, and certainly not with the beacon. I opened my eyes, staring at the older me. He was gone now, fading into the shimmering walls of the simulation. "Make your choice." His voice echoed one last time. And in that moment, I knew. I reached out to the center of the beacon, my fingers brushing the glowing energy, and I made my decision. The world around me shattered. The light from the beacon flared, blinding. As everything folded in on itself, the simulation, the memories, they all fell apart. And as the chaos enveloped me, I heard one last whisper, "It's your path now." When the light faded, I found myself on the surface again, but it wasn't the same surface. The desert was gone, the military outpost was gone. The sky above was clouded with black storm clouds, swirling in an unnatural spiral. The ground beneath my boots felt wrong. It was no longer solid. It was like walking on an unstable surface. Everything beneath me seemed to vibrate with a low hum, almost like the earth itself was alive and shifting. I blinked, adjusting to the disorienting shift, my pulse racing. The air was thick with tension, charged with something unseen, but undeniably powerful. The beacon's energy had surged, and whatever had been unleashed had already begun its work. The Ark had already begun to change the world. I stood up straight, gripping the crystal tightly in my hand. The shard was now glowing with an intensity I hadn't seen before. It pulsed in rhythm with the storm swirling above. As if the two were connected, my choice had been made. But the consequences, I could feel them already. The ground beneath me began to shift again, this time violently, throwing me off balance. A massive crack split the ground open, and out of it, a shadow rose. Korrav. He was no longer the man I had seen before. The armor had changed, morphed, expanded into something darker, something more. His face was concealed behind an obsidian helmet, but his presence was overwhelming. His eyes, if they were eyes at all, burned with an unnatural red glow. "You think you've won?" Korrav's voice echoed, twisted and hollow, amplified by the storm around us. "You've only just begun to understand. The Ark does not bow to you. It does not care for your choices. It belongs to us." I felt a surge of cold fear, but it was quickly replaced with determination. He had come for the beacon, to claim the power that lay within it, but I wasn't going to let him take it, not after everything that had happened. Not after what Kaelari had sacrificed. "You're wrong," I said, trying to steady my voice, trying to ignore the crushing weight of the situation. "The Ark doesn't belong to anyone, not you. Not me. It's something bigger, something that's supposed to protect us, but you've twisted it." Korrav laughed, a hollow sound that reverberated through the air. "Twisted? No, I have freed it. The Ark is not a tool for protection. It is a weapon, and now it will bring the universe to its knees." The storm above us shifted again. The winds howled, the air thick with static. The ground beneath my feet began to crack open, revealing more of the darkness beneath, crawling up like living shadows. Korrav's form expanded, towering over me. His armor glowed now, shifting with the energy that surged through the Ark, becoming a reflection of the storm itself, alive with power, hungry for destruction. "You cannot stop what has already begun," he said, his voice rising as the storm raged around us. "You cannot undo what I have unleashed." I reached out instinctively, raising the crystal high. As soon as my fingers touched its surface, the storm stopped, at least for a moment. The crackling energy in the air was replaced by an eerie silence. My mind raced. The power of the beacon, the memories it contained, the imprint I had taken on, and the fate of everyone around me was all tied together. The older version of me, the tethered path, had been right about one thing. This wasn't just about stopping Korrav. It was about stopping what the Ark had become. The storm had begun because of the beacon's activation, but it didn't have to end that way. It couldn't. I closed my eyes, forcing myself to center my thoughts. The tethered path, this path had opened a doorway, a tether between the beacon's power and my own. I felt it. The connection was stronger now, the energy from the Ark flowing through me. I could feel Kaelari's presence, like a whisper in the back of my mind. She was still there, guiding me, reminding me of what I had to do. This wasn't just about defeating Korrav, it was about taking control of the beacon, reversing the damage and sealing the power back where it belonged, not in the hands of a tyrant. I opened my eyes, my mind clearer than it had ever been before. The crystal in my hand pulsed again, this time brighter than ever before. "You think you can control this?" Korrav hissed, stepping forward. "The beacon is beyond you, beyond your understanding. It's already mine." With a sudden, violent movement, he raised his hand, sending a surge of dark energies straight at me. The force of it tore through the ground, ripping the air apart. The blast hit me like a tidal wave, pushing me back into the sand, but the crystal, it resonated with me. The energy it held was mine to command now. The storm raged again, but this time, I could feel the pulse of the Ark beneath me, responding to my will. With a shout, I slammed the crystal into the ground. The world shook. The Ark's power, its essence, flooded the area around me. The storm, the dark energy that Korrav had unleashed, began to slow. The winds died down, the shadows receded. For the first time, I felt like I could actually control it. Korrav recoiled, stepping back as the energy enveloped him. The cracks in the ground, the darkness, all started to fold back, retreating into the earth as though the beacon itself was closing its doors. "No," he screamed, thrashing against the energy, trying to break free. "This isn't how it was supposed to be. You never understood," I shouted, my voice carrying over the storm's retreat. "The beacon isn't just a weapon, it's a choice to destroy or protect. I choose to protect." Korrav let out one final roar of defiance, but the energy surged, encasing him in a barrier of light. The ground beneath him cracked open once more, pulling him down into the depths below, sealing him away. I fell to my knees, the weight of the moment crashing over me. I had done it. I had stopped Korrav, but the cost, the beacon had responded to me. But its power was too much to hold alone. I could feel the energy swirling around me, threatening to consume me if I didn't act fast. With one final effort, I pushed the crystal back into the ground, forcing the Ark to close itself off, and then silence. I don't know how long I stayed there, how long I knelt in the sand, trying to breathe, trying to let my body calm down after everything I'd just done, but eventually I rose. I turned my back to the place where the beacon had once stood. The storm was gone, the sky was clear again, the sun rising slowly over the horizon. The Ark had been sealed. The choice had been made. The silence stretched longer than I expected. The storm had dissipated, the darkness receded, and the land around me seemed to breathe again. I could feel the warmth of the sun on my skin, the stillness in the air, like everything had been given a second chance. But not me. I wasn't free of the Ark. or the weight of everything I had seen and experienced. The beacon's power still pulsed through me, its energy woven into the fabric of my being. The tethered path was no longer just a choice, it was my reality. It was a price I would have to pay, and one that would follow me for the rest of my life. But I wasn't alone anymore. I stood there, looking out at the horizon. The land finally calm after the battle. My hands still trembled slightly, the crystal's faint glow now dulled to a steady pulse in my palm. Kaelari's voice echoed in my mind, softer now, like a memory passing through a dream. "You did it. You made the right choice." Her words were comforting, but they also carried a weight that I could never shake off. Kaelari had died so that I could survive. She had given everything. And now I was the one who carried the burden of her sacrifice. I was the one who had sealed the Ark. But at what cost? What was the future now that Korrav's chaos had been quelled? What was left to do? The storm had passed. The world had been saved, but the path ahead, my path was uncertain. I had chosen to protect. But the memories I carried, the burden of the beacon, would always follow me. There was no escaping it, not now, not ever. I took a step forward, feeling the weight of the crystal in my hand. The power inside me was immense, but it was also dangerous. I couldn't let it consume me. I couldn't let it turn me into something I wasn't. I had to return, but not to what I had left behind. The journey back to civilization was almost surreal. The world had changed, and so had I. I didn't know how much time had passed, but when I finally reached the remains of the military base, I found no trace of the destruction that had once been there. The storms had cleansed everything, the shattered walls, the wreckage, the memories of a world teetering on the edge of destruction. All of it was gone. I didn't feel like celebrating. I didn't feel anything, really, other than a quiet resignation to the reality of the choice I had made. Korrav was gone, the beacon was sealed. But the price of that victory was something I would never be able to repay. My eyes flicked to the sky. The Ark, the strange, alien technology that had brought me here, was gone. But its presence, its essence, was still inside me. I could feel it pulsing like a steady heartbeat, tethering me to a future I didn't fully understand. I wasn't sure if the world had been saved, or if I had simply delayed the inevitable. But that wasn't something I could dwell on. I had to move forward. As I made my way to the shuttle, I noticed a faint glimmer on the horizon. A new dawn was rising. The clouds that had once been black with storms were now breaking apart, revealing the golden light of the sun. The land below was quiet, almost peaceful. And in that peace, I could feel a thread of hope, a hope that maybe, just maybe, the world could rebuild itself. But it wasn't my world to fix. I had done my part. I had made the choice, fought the battle, and sealed the Ark. I had carried the memories of those who had come before me, and I would carry them always. But I wasn't just the tethered. I wasn't just a protector of the beacon. I was more than that. I had lived, and I was ready to live again. I stepped into the shuttle and fired up the engines. The hum of the craft, a familiar sound, one that grounded me in the present. The control panel lit up in front of me, and I stared at the blinking lights, knowing that the path ahead was uncertain, but it was mine to choose. For the first time in a long while, I felt the weight of the crystal begin to lighten in my hand. It wasn't a burden anymore. It was a reminder that I wasn't alone, that I didn't have to carry the weight of the world on my shoulders. I looked out the window as the shuttle lifted off from the barren ground. Below me, the land stretched out in quiet emptiness, but above me, the sky was clear. The storm had passed, and the world was at peace. Or at least, it was starting to be. As the shuttle ascended into the atmosphere, I whispered a quiet promise. To the stars, to Kaelari, and to myself, the world would go on, and I would, too.